Next up is my good friend Keith Phillips. He's the CEO of Piedmont Lithium, and he's my good friend, first of all, because he's a good guy. We've known one another for a while. He's a hockey guy like I am, but he also made yours truly look pretty darn good. Piedmont Lithium was my best performer back in 2020 when you guys announced an offtake agreement with Tesla on your North Carolina project. We're going to learn about that, but you're one of the smartest people on the planet that I know, Keith, in the lithium space. And we're going to hear a story that started in North Carolina, really, but now has become a global story. So take it away, buddy, and we'll be back and converse a bit when you're through.
Thanks a lot, Chris. Great to be with you. I really appreciate being part of this. And you're right, we've known each other a while. You got in early. You got some of your investors in early, I hope, which is great. So having heard what you just said, our challenge is to be your best performer in 2022 and 2023. And I think we can be. It's interesting. Our stock is 8 or 10x what it was when you first looked at it. But I actually think we present more value today. The lithium business has matured dramatically. Lithium prices are up dramatically. Our stock has really kind of flatlined in the last year. We've had a lot of peers who we have respect for, whose stocks have gone 2x, 4x, 6x, 20x. We've been flat. We see huge upside. You're going to hear about how we've diversified the portfolio intelligently and grown the portfolio, and to bring us cash flow nearer term and build a bigger business. So we are, as Chris said, I'm Keith Phillips. I'm the president and chief executive officer at Piedmont Lithium. Joined Piedmont 5 years ago, and we've been building our business. We aspire to be North America's biggest producer of lithium hydroxide, which you need in longer range electric vehicles. We're going to produce all of that lithium from spodumene concentrate, which we think is the most commercially scalable way to produce lithium hydroxide and the lowest risk. No one has any question about whether we can produce lithium hydroxide from our spodumene concentrate. I have a lot of questions about whether others can produce lithium hydroxide from other more esoteric mineral sources. And importantly, we control all the spodumene concentrate we need to produce all the lithium hydroxide we intend to produce. We made 3 really well-timed investments last year, 2 in Quebec, 1 in Ghana. We now control a very large spodumene concentrate endowment, essentially. So with that, I will try to forward my page. There we go. So this is a version of the presentation that's on our website. Everything in here is public information, and I know the guys will make it available to you. On the left-hand side, you see Piedmont at a glance. Again, we're developing lithium to power America's energy transition. The world is electrifying. Importantly, we're reliant today, the world is, on China for 83% of lithium hydroxide production. We want to bring that production home to North Carolina and the United States, where it all began. The lithium industry was first conceived and developed in North Carolina. Essentially, all the world's lithium was produced in North Carolina from the 1950s to the 1980s. We're back doing it again, and we'll be doing it elsewhere as well. So we're going to develop 60,000 tons of lithium hydroxide production per year. That's quadruple what our country produces today. We're going to do that from over 500,000 tons of annual spodumene concentrate production from assets we control in North Carolina, Quebec, and in Ghana. We expect to have near-term cash flow first half of 2023 from North American Lithium Restart. We've got a wonderful sustainability profile. I'll talk about strong team. We're lucky to be in the Charlotte area. Our headquarters are in Belmont, North Carolina, a 10-minute drive from the airport in Charlotte. There's more English-speaking lithium processing talent in the Charlotte area than anywhere else in the world, just given the long history. Albemarle, the world's biggest company, is headquartered there. Livent has their big US operation nearby, et cetera. On the right-hand side of the page, you can see we're listed on NASDAQ. We had 17.9 million shares outstanding. 90% of our trading volume is now on NASDAQ, and we're pretty liquid. We trade over $40 million a day. Stock price around 70 plus or minus, market cap around $1.2 billion. We raised money in March through JP Morgan and Evercore and a group of others. We raised a total of 120 million. We now have $166 million in cash. That's all the money we need well into 2023. And we also have at the bottom here, equity interest, $350 million worth of value in stock in Sayona Mining and Atlantic Lithium, our 2 affiliates and friends. We are listed on the Australian Stock Exchange as well for those who are interested. And we have 10 different research analysts who cover our stock, all have buys on the stock. A few have made some pretty recent updates with some pretty bold target projections, which I actually think are conservative, but it's good to see the updates. Just quickly on where we are, what our projects are. So Carolina Lithium, which is our flagship project that we began the company with, is based 30 miles west of Charlotte. Our office is 10 miles west, but the project is 30 miles west of Charlotte. We have two projects in what we call the ABITIBI hub in Quebec. ABITIBI is a region of Quebec. I'll talk more about that. That's where the near-term production is. We're earning a 50% interest in a great project in Ghana called Abuja. And we're going to build another chemical plant to process the material from Ghana and some of the material from Quebec. We're deciding on a final site for that. So that's just to give you context. And now I'm going to talk for a minute about the lithium industry for those that aren't up to date. So I'm going to start with some interesting kind of fun facts and fun quotes for those that aren't paying attention. The market has gone from 2 or 3 years ago, people saying nice things about lithium to and electrification to being fully committed to it. So General Motors is going to offer nothing but electric vehicles by 2035. So by 13 years from now, they will not sell any internal combustion engine vehicles. So we'll see if they meet that, but that's their goal. The biggest issue facing the industry, as you'll see, is a shortage of raw materials. Mineral constraints are a problem. So Ford CEO has been calling for more domestic mining. Factbox, world faces shortage of lithium for batteries. Volkswagen's talking about getting involved in the business. Biden invoked the Defense Production Act for EV battery materials. The Rivian CEO, raw material shortage will severely limit EV production. And my favorite on the Tesla earnings call recently, Elon Musk he literally said, do you like minting money? The lithium business is for you. So it's a good business. We're happy to be in it, and we see a very bright future. This is an interesting way to look at the electric vehicle business. So this is from an analyst in London named Matt Fernley. He's a geologist. He's been covering the sector for a long time. He's very thoughtful. As you look at his view in gray of what he thinks electric vehicle sales would be globally if there was no material constraint, and by material constraints, he means lithium and some other things as well, you'd see very dramatic growth. Eventually, everyone's going to want an electric vehicle. They're smoother, quieter, faster, et cetera. I'm a Tesla driver. They're great vehicles. In blue, he shows what he thinks electric vehicle sales will actually be because of the massive material constraints, the shortages of things like lithium. It takes 2 years to build a car plant, 2 years to build a battery plant, 10 years plus to build a mineral property. It just takes a long time. You got to find the land, you got to do the drilling, you got to do metallurgical work, engineering work, permitting, funding, ramp up, et cetera. It takes a long time. So we believe we're going to have shortages of lithium for over a decade. We're particularly going to have shortages in the United States. This is a map showing many of the big announcements in the last year or so for large battery capacity being built in the US. A couple of years ago, people would say to me, Keith, it's great you have a project in North Carolina, but you're going to have to send your raw material to Korea or Japan. I said, no, that's not the way it's going to be. The big guys are going to come to America in size. This is a huge economy, huge car market. And you've seen in the last year, massive announcements, well over 25 billion from the big 3 US car companies, plus Tesla, plus Toyota, plus all the big battery companies. The big Koreans, LG, SK Innovation, and Samsung, plus Panasonic, big investments. These plants that have been announced and intend to produce by 2025 or so will need over 500,000 tons a year of lithium hydroxide. That's triple what the world produces today. So we're going to need, just in the US in 3 years, triple what the world produces today. And the US is a laggard. Europe is way ahead. China's way ahead. So we're going to need a lot of lithium hydroxide. It's a problem. We currently only produce 15,000 tons domestically. We intend to build 60,000 tons of capacity. We think we'll be by far the biggest. It's going to be a lot of fun. These plants are going to get built. They're all going to need a lithium for the batteries. It's the irreplaceable element. You cannot make a lithium ion battery without lithium. Everything else is substitutable for better or worse. There are going to be big shortages. People are going to have to get their supplies from China. There'll be no alternative, but anybody who can supplant the Chinese production is going to be a favorite supplier. We expect to be the biggest, and that's our plan. The shortages have driven lithium prices up dramatically. So lithium hydroxide today, 81,500 is the most recent price quoted. Our studies are all done on a $22,000 long-term lithium hydroxide price, which when we did it, our DFS back in December was a big discount, but we thought that's a good long-term price. I'm increasingly thinking for the next decade or so, prices will be elevated. We'll see, but I think prices will be elevated. If you imagine making 60,000 tons of lithium hydroxide, every additional $1,000 in price is 60 million of EBITDA. There's just huge upside, huge leverage. Spodumene concentrate prices are up 15 times in 18 months, from the 375, 400 level to now over 62.50. Pilbara in Australia had an auction overnight, over 62.50. Massive prices. We're going to be a near-term producer of spodumene concentrate in Quebec and in Ghana. We're going to sell that material until our chemical plants are built. We're really hopeful prices stay as strong as they are, and I'm optimistic they will. So it's just a wonderful environment and good backdrop for our business. So as I said earlier, we're developing really 4 projects, 2 spodumene businesses, one in Quebec, one in Ghana, feeding chemical plants in southeastern US. So, and from a timeline, we don't have the years here, but fundamentally our partner Sayona Mining is expecting to be in production with the restart of North American Lithium in the first quarter of 2023. So we're saying first half 2023 will be in production, spodumene concentrate production in Quebec. In Ghana, our partner expects to be in production by the end of 2023. We're saying first half of 2024. So first half 2023, first half 2024, spodumene concentrate production. We expect to have a site selected for our second chemical plant, DFS and permitting completed all this year, and be in construction in the first half of next year, be in production first half of 2025. So 23, 24, 25, first half. This hydroxide will be produced from this concentrate and some of this concentrate. And then our Carolina Lithium project, which is more involved, the permitting process is longer. It's $1 billion capital project. It's more complex. It's a mine, concentrate plant, byproducts plants, $60 million conveyor system, chemical plant. We're going to do that last after we've done all this other stuff and become a real cash flower. And that'll be, we think, in production late 2025, first half of 2026. So on this page, we'll be producing 60,000 tons of lithium hydroxide from 390,000 tons of the concentrate we control. We'll have excess 115,000 tons. There will ultimately be another bar down here for lithium hydroxide production in Quebec, which we intend to be a big part of. In Quebec, if you look at, and I'm going to spend a minute on each project essentially. So in Quebec, we acquired an interest in Sayona Mining and their OTA lithium project, a 25% interest in the project, 19.9% in the company a year and a half ago, January 2021. We jointly acquired North American Lithium out of receivership. This is North American Lithium right here. So we own 25% of the combined ABITIBI hub, Tansim's an exploration property. So in combined, this is by far Canada's biggest spodumene project. It's by far Canada's best located project. It's on rail near the town of Val-d'Or, real mining town, 30,000 people, trade, spare parts, etc. Every other Canadian lithium project is remotely located. Here are the other Quebec projects. They're wonderful ore bodies. They're considerably north of rail access. There are no significant communities here. They have to fly in, fly out their workers. We won't have to do that here. So we think those are big advantages. This is also by far Canada's most advanced lithium project in that it is already built. So this was built 8 or 9 years ago by Lucas Lundin's team. It was built probably 8 or 10 years too early. Before, Tesla hadn't sold a car. No one else was making electric cars. They struggled, went into receivership. Chinese bought it. They started it up in 2017, 18. I was there in early 2018 when it was ramping up. They were making good progress. The team identified $30 million of capital they wanted to spend to debottleneck and improve throughput. The Chinese wouldn't fund that because lithium prices then were falling. They put it back on a care and maintenance for the last 3 years. We bought it out of receivership. We think we can start this up in the next 12 months. The last thing I'll mention is we have an offtake agreement on these assets for the greater of 50% of production, or 113,000 tons a year of concentrate, with at market prices subject to a floor of 500 and a ceiling of 900. Prices are now $5,000 higher than that. So if you do the math, if we were to be selling today 113,000 tons with a $5,000 margin, we'd make over $500 million of EBITDA just on our offtake agreement. Spectacular project, asset, near term. We're very excited about it. In Ghana, the highlight here is really twofold. Number one, the project is a mile from the Atlantic Ocean. It's 70 miles along the national highway to this major port in Takoradi. We can get raw material from this project to southeastern US for less than we can get it from Quebec. So we're going to bring that material into LHP2 in the interim. This will be producing first. Well, it's really over here, but it'll be producing first, and we'll sell the spodumene on the market until we're ready to take it. But it's coarse grain spodumene, high grade, 1.26%. Exploration is ongoing. It's 30 million tons. It will be bigger. I don't know how much bigger, but there's huge upside. There are a lot of drill holes that aren't counted yet, and they've really just gotten started. It'll produce 300,000 tons of concentrate. 50% of that will be ours because we're earning a 50% interest, and we will pay market for that material, but we'll be paying it to ourselves, and that'll allow us. So we'll make real money here. Operating costs are expected to be very low, DMS only, low transport costs, et cetera. We're very excited about that. We're going to bring that material into this second chemical plant, which, and this is a schematic of what that plant will look like. We're looking at sites in North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi, and Tennessee. We're advancing discussions with all of them. We hope to make a decision in June as to what site we'll get. In some cases, we'll have to buy the site. We think we'll publish a full definitive feasibility study within 90 days. And the reason for that is the DFS is going to be on this plant, which is a mirror image of the plant we're going to build at Carolina Lithium, where we completed a DFS in December. So the DFS engineering for all this is done, except for the fact that we don't have a site yet. So it may not look like this. We may reorient it. That'll take 60 to 90 days. So if we have the site in June, we'll have DFS in September. We think we'll have be fully permitted by the end of the year. All we need is an air permit. It'll be a synthetic minor air permit, we believe, which will be relatively rapid. This will be the biggest lithium chemical plant in the US or in North America, producing 30,000 tons a year. CapEx around $600 million. OpEx looks high because we're assuming we pay $1,200 a ton for concentrate. It could be higher. That's okay. We're paying that money to ourselves. At those levels, it'll generate EBITDA of $350 million a year, NPV $2.2 billion. Really excited about this project. Carolina Lithium, our flagship, is 30 miles west of Charlotte on the Carolina tin spodumene belt, a famous mineral belt where all of the world's lithium was produced from the 1950s to the 80s in two old mines that are now depleted. They were depleted, but chemical production has continued. All the lithium hydroxide production in North America happens here. It all happens, they don't use spodumene like we'll use. They used to, now they use lithium carbonate from brine operations in Argentina for Livent, in Nevada for Albemarle. They're relatively small, but the infrastructure here is the best in the world. We're surrounded by car plants. Taxes are low, weather's good. Just everything about this is good. It'll enable us to be, we think, the lowest cost producer in the world. And we're advancing through permitting there. The DFS is done. We've got our federal 404 permit. We hope to get the mine permit this summer, July, August. We need an air permit. This won't be a synthetic miner. It's a bigger site. There are other emissions. That'll take some time, but we hope to have it fully permitted by the middle of next year. And again, we'll be building this after the other stuff is underway. Big catalyst for the rest of the year, and then I'll pause. There's some other pages, but I'll pause and leave them for your review later. In Quebec, pre-feasibility should be published in the next week or two, and that'll show the economics for the Quebec restart. We'll have a decision immediately after that. We've already started spending the money to restart that. We want to be in production first half of next year. In Ghana, there was a resource update recently, which is great. Feasibility study mid-year, permitting we hope by the end of the year, in construction next year. Should take less than a year to build. It's dense medium separation only. Should be production first half 2024. Lithium hydroxide plant 2, site selection in June, DFS in September, permitting by the end of the year, in construction first half next year. We're very excited about this. So ABITIBI will be the first spodumene production in North America in 25 years. LHP2 will be the first new chemical plant built in 50 years. And then Carolina Lithium will come a year later. Permitting is the big catalyst there. Last thing I'll say is we are running a strategic process with our advisors, JP Morgan and Evercore. We're looking for people to help us fund the $1 billion Carolina Lithium project, the $600 million lithium hydroxide plant 2. We're talking to the people you might expect, car companies and battery companies who need material, but also mining companies, chemical companies, private equity groups who are interested in the business. We hope to have announcements over the course of this year. It's not time sensitive, but things are going well. We're optimistic. And then the final thing I'll say is we think we're cheap relative to peers. I said earlier, while the stock's done well, we think we've got some peers who are terrific companies. Sayona, I mentioned, is an affiliate of ours. Livent, Lithium Americas, MP Materials. I think MP Materials is particularly interesting. This is a rare earth play in California. Great business. They have their market cap is 6 times ours. They are producing today, so they'll have EBITDA this year, so that's great. But if you roll forward 2 or 3 or 4 years and their business develops the way they think it will, and our business develops the way we think ours will, we'll have way more EBITDA than them. And 100% of our business is going to the EV business, which is growing. 15% of their business is for magnets, for electric motors, for electric vehicles. The rest is not in the EV business. So we just see huge upside. To get there, we need to execute. We're totally focused this year on execution in Quebec, in Ghana, and with a couple plants in the United States. So Chris, with that, I'll pause and turn it over to you for any questions you might have.
Well, folks, you can tell why I've loved this company. In fact, just a few months ago, starting to get my head around in a better way, which Keith has augmented considerably here. I went back to a buy. You know, we ran up 8 or 10-fold, as he said earlier. I told people, okay, pull back a little bit, don't chase it. Let's see where things settle. And as Keith said, the stock is flatlined for a while, even as the bigger pieces of a much broader Piedmont Lithium have come into being, and now with this cash flow likely starting next year, it is, I think, an undervalued story, and that's why I went back to a buy on it. So even if you never bought any, you missed the first go around, don't miss the second one. So it's a really cool story, Keith. The one thing people are going to be able to look at your website. You've got your fact sheet in our program. People can key off of that and go to the website. But the one thing I want to touch on that I think is really interesting from an environmental perspective, because we're hypocrites in this society. We want these electric vehicles, and some people seem to think that Elon Musk has a magic extrusion machine that just takes unicorn urine and pixie dust and puts it all together and spits out these cars and the batteries. And of course, we know that doesn't happen. But nonetheless, there are people who don't want mining. They don't want resource development in our country to take care of this. And we're putting a dent in that. You're putting a dent in that. But in that context, tell us how important it is that the material that you're going to be producing one of these days is hosted in spodumene, and the distinction between that and some of the other sources of lithium.
Yeah, it's a good question. So lithium is interesting in that it comes in the kind of Earth's crust in many forms. So it's present in spodumene minerals. So 60% or so of the world's lithium production today comes from spodumene, all in Western Australia. Currently, it used to all be in North Carolina. 35% or so comes from brine deposits in mostly Chile and Argentina. These are deposits where it's brine, it's liquid, it's like salty water. The salt is lithium. You're in the Atacama Desert, you pump the brine from the aquifer up to the surface, the desert floor, you put it in massive evaporation ponds, several football fields, you evaporate the liquid, you get brine, and you get lithium that way. That works. There are 3 or 4 producers in Chile and Argentina now. And now there are a number of people talking about doing other things, and I wish them all well. So there are people looking at producing lithium from cerlicite. There are people looking at producing lithium from clay, people looking at producing lithium from yadarite, people looking at producing lithium from really low-grade brines where the normal evaporation process wouldn't work economically. They're looking at producing through what they call DLE, direct lithium extraction. All of these things are really interesting. Everyone I know doing it is really sharp, and they're smart, and they're working hard at it. And I wish them all well. The world's going to need a lot of lithium. As we talk to car companies, it's pretty clear they are worried about whether or not these other sources will in fact work on a timeline that's important to them, because none of them are proven at scale. Doesn't mean they won't be. I think some of them will, and I think some of them won't. And it's hard to predict which will be which. There's a 100% chance that anyone who has a quality spodumene deposit, and I know you cover and you know a few of them, there's a beautiful deposit in northwestern Ontario, for instance. There's a 100% chance you'll be able to produce lithium hydroxide battery quality from that material. We'll all have our own individual challenges on what recoveries we'll have, what our costs will ultimately be. But if you're a big car company, for sure you can get hydroxide from the material we have. I think that's really interesting. I think there's a lot of risk in this industry. It's a new industry for a lot of people. I'm sometimes baffled why investors decide it's a good idea to take the additional technological risk in something that's never been done before. You don't need to do that. You can buy our stock or someone else's stock where we don't have that issue. We have our own execution risks with all the other projects have too. We don't have that additional issue. So that always surprises me.
Well, that's big. Folks, look, take the time, do your homework on Piedmont. I think it's retooling, as Keith has pointed out, and as I've told my own members at the National Investor. I think that this lull for a period of time after the huge share price move is going to be over pretty soon as the world gets its head around the needs for lithium going forward. Keith spoke really well to that. So Keith, keep up the good work, and we'll look forward to that news coming out shortly from Quebec. And Dang, we're gonna wait for the cash register to start ringing one of these days.
That'll
too.
be fun. I'm looking forward to that too.
All right. Hey, thanks much.
Thanks
for
a lot,
being
Chris.
part of
Thanks,
this.
everybody. Thank you.